Welcome, entrepreneurs, students, and taxpayers. This is The Tipping Point, a show devoted to individuals trying to get ahead. We scour the region for the most competent individuals in their business-related fields and allow them to educate us on their specialty. Because knowledge is power, and with enough power, you can tip the scales in your favor. I'm your host, Gabriel Velez. Today's episode is brought to you by Terrani & Velez, the #1 up-and-coming tax and accountancy firm out of Orange County, specializing in working with closely held businesses. Our guest today, Rick Girard, founder and CEO of Stride Search, which he has expertise in talent acquisition, creative sourcing, consultative management, and winning placement strategies. Rick Girard brings world-class leadership to firms across the nation to meet highly challenging business and talent acquisition objectives. As a reminder, if you like today's content, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Welcome to the show, Rick. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for having me, Gabe. I'm excited to be here.
Man, not only do I have you as a guest today, but you have your own radio show
I do.
on OC Talk Radio.
Yes.
And
it's called Higher Power, HIRE. It's not a religious show.
It's not a religious show. And what do you guys talk about on that show usually?
So we discuss and break down issues that companies might have in the hiring process. So what we want to do is provide content that allows entrepreneurs and businesses the ability to attract talent and hire the talent they need for them to succeed.
Okay.
And get out of their own way in doing so.
Okay. And more important now than ever because
Yes.
we're at like full employment, right? Less than 3%, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think Orange County is at 2.8% as
Wow.
of last month. And I do know that in the professional realm, it's less than that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're relying on really bad job descriptions and job boards to attract talent, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel and you're pretty much getting the unemployable. So I recommend not doing that.
Absolutely.
Shameless plug.
And just another plug for you actually is I use a lot of the techniques that I've learned from you and then also on your radio show to actually hire because
Awesome.
I've experienced it, right? So my day job, obviously I'm an accountant. I run a firm located out of Orange County. And
the firm,
the #1
best-
firm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before listening to you, and this is the God's honest truth, before listening to you, we had a harder time recruiting, right? Because, like you said, the financial industry is right now. Everybody has a job.
Yeah.
Less than 1% unemployment.
Absolutely. And I'm sure it's kind of difficult to find people who are really ready to, like, nobody's looking for a job.
Exactly.
You have to reach out and find them.
Yeah.
We're in a market where you have to tap people on the shoulder and say, hey, what's going on? How can I help you out? And especially if you're focusing on their career. Gallup did a poll last year. 68% of the U.S. workforce is disengaged and disenchanted in their current roles. So that means that's a huge pool of people that are not looking for jobs, but are easily, if you can provide them whatever it is they're lacking in their career, it puts you in a situation where you have competitive advantage and you can pull somebody who's a really, really solid performer.
Yeah, I mean, right, so job boards, they don't really work in this environment, or they don't work as well, right? Because people are actively looking for jobs at this point, usually.
Well, I haven't used a job board in probably 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, to find people. And companies tend to use them as like their backup plan.
Okay.
So, you hear a lot of people saying that they respond to jobs and they never hear anything back. Well, that's because it's kind of the wrong way to go about doing a search.
Okay.
The way in which you should approach if you are looking is that use the power of tools that are out there and some of the other, your #1 way to get into a company, get yourself hired, is to go through a referral.
Right.
Employee referrals are always the strongest references.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can find somebody who works at a company who maybe is a friend of a friend who can make an introduction, that's your best way in, 9 times out of 10. And you will get a call back and you will get some traction.
Absolutely. You're kind of talking about it from the employee's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even so, like LinkedIn is a great tool for the employer as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, like personally, that's what I've used and what has been the most effective for me in recent times is LinkedIn, because you're able to First off, they have great search engines.
I hope you're getting a sponsorship from LinkedIn right now.
Hey, LinkedIn, if you're listening, here I
Pay
am.
attention, people.
Well, here it is, right? It's super inexpensive. Everybody's resume is pretty much published, and they have that section for skill set and everything, right?
Yeah.
And so what LinkedIn has allowed me to do is actually tap those people on the shoulder that already have and say, hey, are you open to having a conversation about a possible opportunity, and is this going to fit your needs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah.
LinkedIn is an amazing tool for that. It's opened up the market. I mean, back when I started in recruiting, it was all about resumes and sending them. I mean, like, I age myself here, but it was really about getting somebody's resume, faxing it out to the company.
Yeah.
It was so old fashioned, right? And now it's about, and it was all about the people that you had in your database. Now you don't even need a database because you've got a huge database, which is LinkedIn.
Right.
And then you can augment LinkedIn with, a lot of other kind of tools that are out there that will pull people off of various social networking platforms as well.
Yeah.
But that's more advanced stuff.
So
but LinkedIn for your needs, that's kind of all you need, really.
Yeah, to get the audience, right? To actually go out and touch the people, and right?
To poke somebody and get them talking to you.
Okay, and then next step from there is understanding that hiring and recruiting is a sales process.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I think we forget.
Yeah.
But it's not a sales process like a traditional sales where you're trying to push something down somebody's throat.
Right.
Like, used car salesman.
Sure.
You're trying to gain insight into what that person's pain point is.
Yep.
And seeing if you can heal it. That makes for a better hire. And it also takes a lot of the transactional process out of it. So, if you're finding somebody on job boards and you happen to find somebody who's really good or somebody who's actively on the market, they might be searching for just the best offer. Yeah. And people base a lot of their decisions on how much money they get.
Yeah.
And that's usually what it comes down to.
And you shouldn't lead.
No, that should be something that you, that's a product.
Right.
So when it comes down to the end of the process, you should be saying, do you want to work here? Yeah, I do. Okay, great. Now what's going to take to get you on board?
Yeah.
And that should be a short conversation if you're doing things right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so that sales process starts with the marketing piece, which is the job posting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you want to go back to the job description?
I mean, we can go wherever.
That's where you need to start. Absolutely.
I mean, right. Otherwise, you're not going to get that first conversation going.
No. So, job descriptions are effectively terrible and broken, and you need to treat them like they're a marketing document for your company, right? So when you look at job descriptions, they're always written from the perspective of this is what our company needs, and you need to have to join our illustrious team.
Sure.
And it's very one-sided, selfish, right?
Sure, yeah.
So if I'm reading them, I read job descriptions all the time, and I get so turned off by them. I'm like, oh, I just want to throw up a mouth.
Yeah.
So if you treat it from the perspective of like, okay, I'm going to write this for the person I want to hire.
Yep.
And then I'm going to put in. We have a methodology that we use in my firm. Where essentially, what we do is we try to uncover a career wound first.
Okay.
And let me find what a career wound is. Somebody's pain point.
Yeah.
Reason why somebody's open to talking to you. So they'll be centered around three things: career growth, the content of the work, or leadership issues.
Yeah.
And if you dig into it, you get people talking about what's going on in their career, which they're happy to talk about because nobody else is listening.
Okay.
Most of the time, right?
Yeah.
And if you care enough to listen and really think, hey, would we fit for this person or not, then you've got a captive audience that could potentially be a great hire for you. So once we kind of open up that wound, then we want to demonstrate that we're a company that promotes growth.
Yep.
That the work is challenging. That we're kind of putting performance metrics in place. So we even map out what the expectations are for the person in the first 90 days.
Okay.
And then the first 1 year.
Yeah.
So if you give somebody a syllabus like what you get in college, of what's expected of you
Yeah.
during the course of their employment, the first year of employment with you, they're going to most likely exceed those expectations. If you don't have it mapped out, then they don't know where to go, and most likely you're going to have issues.
So yeah, expectations, right? Expectations and meeting the expectations on both ends.
Yeah.
So like the employee trying to sell you on why you should hire them, and then you trying to, sell them on why they should come work for you. You don't want, if you go back to the analogy of buying a car, you don't want a lemon. You don't want to find out what it was that you thought you were buying, you actually weren't buying.
Yeah, and that takes it kind of into the interview process and how you conduct the interview process, because again, a lot of companies tend to hire for skill, as opposed to hiring for culture first, skills second or third.
Yeah,
so you want to look for kind of culture. You want to look at their cognitive abilities, how well they problem solve, and how well they take initiative, and then finally skills. Should be last, and you should be looking at transferable skills. You don't want somebody that you're going to hire from your competitor to come work for you to do the same exact job they're doing for a competitor, because there's no growth for them. And so what are they going to do? They're going to come in, they're going to probably underperform.
Yeah, they're going to be unmotivated.
Yeah.
There's no excite them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have to have some sort of challenge. And then finally in the job description, if you're putting your job descriptions out to one of the various job boards, you want to have some sort of mechanism in place that will help to screen out people or screen them in. Yeah. Right? So we put in what we call, which is essentially, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework for you to do. And I don't want to see your resume yet. I don't want you to answer these 3 kind of open-ended questions that give me insight as to who you are as a person. Okay. So an example of that might be, what do you feel you're truly capable of? It's just a really simple, open-ended question. And I look for people who are fairly expressive. I use this for my company if I ever put anything out. But I want people to tell me, this gives me insight as to kind of what their career wound might be. Okay. Right? And it gives me a conversation piece for me to talk to them about. Now, if they give me some no-brainer answer like, well, I'm capable of achieving anything I put my mind to. Yeah. And they go to the next question, then I know that's the same care that they're going to put into their job. Yeah. So that's mediocrity. I mean, if you're not taking that care in your job search, then why put in more of an effort in your job? Wow. You blew my mind with that. Okay, so as opposed to just asking for like any blanket cover letter, here's a few topics that I'd like to. No, so take people. If you think about it this way, when you go through an interview process, you want to get people out of their canned responses. Right. Yes. Right. So somebody's going to typically give you like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Well, in 5 years, I want to be in your seat. Like those are that they've all heard. But what you want to get to the core of who that person is. The point of interview, when you get to that point, or a conversation, is get to the truth of who that person is, so that you don't have these surprises of, oh gosh, this is different expectations than what I thought it might be. So, so that's your purpose, to get them in the right mindset to where you're gathering the right information. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Everything you've talked about, like I've experienced, right, as a business owner. So sure. I've had the people who on paper they were winners. They had the licenses, they had the experience, the years experience, had the education, but they were a bad cultural fit. For you as a business owner, the only thing that you should look on a resume. Yeah. I mean, whether you probably need a CPA, right? Yeah. Okay. So look at their credentials. Sure. And then look at their job history. Yep. And don't even read the rest. Yep. The rest is usually crap. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, that's, I like when I talk about, interviewing for white space. The white space on the resume is what you want to interview for. Yeah. That's all the blank stuff, right? Right. Yeah. That's everything you have to uncover in the interview. Yeah. You can do it. Now, once you kind of take you've got your job description, you start generating candidates. We do kind of a 3-pronged phone call first with each person. Yeah. And so I want to cover 3 things. So I want to uncover the career wound. Yep. I want to know what this person innately desires out of their career. and then I want to know what they've accomplished. So those three things, I'm gonna lead them down. We're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
And then it's gonna give me a really good insight as to what kind of person that I have here and how well they're gonna fit into my culture, my company.
And do you find that this is important at all levels, like entry level?
Even if you're hiring somebody to take out your trash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Right.
Because if you make it a standard, if you have the best person in your company that's like the best at taking out trash, then that just goes up, right? Well, I mean, you're hiring up on everybody that you hire.
Okay.
So why? Yeah, you should
to pull your organization forward.
Yeah.
So this kind of leads into another topic, right? Which is like being true to yourself and your company and what your company is.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think you're Apple, probably not Apple. Can you still hire Apple level?
You can. And here's the thing. I pull people out of Apple and Google and Facebook all the time.
Okay.
Because, and it just has to do with timing. Yeah. And it has to do with whether or not my opportunity can heal somebody's career wound and give them what they're yearning out of their career. Yeah. Right. Just a quick tip back to what we were saying a minute ago.
Sure.
I think it's really important that when you bring people in, bring them through this process, that you map out what your values are.
Okay, yeah.
And you stay true to those and don't compromise. And it's hard to do because you're going to get tired of interviewing people. And what ends up happening, and I just had a conversation at an event that I was with today. Yeah. To a guy who said, we interviewed 14 people and we just kind of picked the best of the lot. Yeah. And I'm like, well, how's he working out? Well, he's okay. Well, why did you hire it? Yeah. I mean, you should not, especially as a small company, you should not compromise because you're only going to be as good as your weakest link. Sure, yeah. And it's going to put you as a leader in a position where it's just more stress for you. Yeah. And it's more work. So you want to put yourself in a position where you're not part of the 80-20 rule, meaning 20% of the people produce 80% of the value. Yeah. You want to flip that. So I guess that would be the 20-80 rule. You want to go for the 80-20 rule. If that makes sense.
Super important in small organizations like you're talking about.
Yes, because one bad hire is going to affect at least two other people. Yeah. So if you have a 10-person company, you're now down 30%. Yeah. Productivity. Yeah. That's massively destructive to a company.
Yep. I think you already mentioned that most employees today are disengaged at work, right? They're bored.
You might even have some in your own company.
You might even have some in your,
you probably do.
So what I personally do, right, to try and avoid this, but you don't know, is we actually take a proactive approach in retaining people. Mm-hmm. And not only do we have our semi-annual reviews, right, performance reviews, here's your raise, this is what you've been doing good and bad on, right? We actually take people out for lunch on one-on-one conversations for retention review or retention interview, right? Okay. And it's more about like, what is the company doing for you versus what have you been doing for the company? And it's about like them, and not everybody's going to want to be
that's a great position. Yeah. That's a fantastic position, because if somebody feels kind of tapped out where they are, mm-hmm. you can just move seats before they get totally frustrated. Now you got a happy employee again.
Right. Yeah. And just having those real candid conversations, like what is it that's going to make you happy? Right. Like, do you want to work really hard, make a lot of money? Not everybody wants to be a partner at a CPA firm. Yeah. Right.
Not everybody wants to be a recruiter either.
Not everybody wants to be an accountant. not everybody wants to be an accountant in general. And so just having those conversations and allowing them to grow within that position or move them around, like you were saying, to a better position where they're suited.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the way most companies are starting to go. Being disruptive in a space where you're more served to the employee as opposed to the employee being a servant to you is the way that most tech companies and a lot of like cutting edge companies are really going, and it's proving to be effective. Yeah. And so I had a guest on my show a couple weeks ago who has a small, about a 50-person company right here, right across the freeway from you guys.
Okay.
And essentially, they've totally, like, the way they've eliminated middle management. And so you basically, and they've created what they call I forget what it's called, but it's basically an employment platform where the employees put in requests to management for services.
Okay.
So now you would think that this would create a lot more for management because there's one layer of management and then everybody reports up to those. But in essence, people figure out things and they solve them on their own because they're empowered. The other thing that they did was they completely went transparent. So everybody knows everybody else's salary.
Wow.
Which is really bold, right?
Yeah.
But what's been the result of it is they found that people were effectively raising their colleagues, and they were saying to upper management, hey, so-and-so has been doing a great job, and he's not making as much as he should be, so we're going to nominate him for a raise. And they found this culture has just been phenomenal. And their growth went from like 4 million to 40 million in 2 years. So they went 10x and, crazy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, you're talking about disrupting, like, yeah.
That's
pioneer stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so,
but if you can do it, why not?
It was a bold move, and it seems to be paying off for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But be creative and do what your staff wants from you. Not necessarily wants from you, but needs from you, right? And
yeah.
A lot of times they want you to coddle them, but I mean, it's really about providing what they really need for them to be empowered and effective in their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? So, like, in my profession, I mean, I guess in any profession, you're dealing in an atmosphere where, like, technology and ideas they're continually moving forward and at a really rapid pace.
Sure.
Right? So, like, even somebody who's 30, 40 years old can actually be a dinosaur in this, right? So, like,
yeah, yeah, I'm a dinosaur.
Well, you're a dinosaur, right? but you constantly go back to kind of re-educate yourself and reinvigorate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to always make sure that I'm ahead of the curve, and
yeah,
I just kind of have like an insatiable need for like innovation.
Yeah.
It's like part of who I am.
I mean, that's part of your background, right?
Yeah.
Which is you come from a tech background, recruiting in tech. So.
Yeah.
And
so it's probably beaten into me when I was like a young fledgling in the business.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about millennials, right?
Okay. What do you want to know about millennials?
All right. So a lot of what we're talking about, like having the employees lead you. All right. So, like, millennials get a bad rep, right? So, like,
sure,
they're disengaged, they're lazy, they don't like working hard, right? These are kind of like the.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
I mean, I don't either, but this is like,
yeah,
right.
I mean, I hear a lot of, I meet some of my colleagues that are like, oh, millennials, and I think you just have to change your leadership style.
Okay.
And you have to be able to do workarounds. Now, also, you're also hiring the wrong millennials.
Yeah.
Maybe it's back on you not finding the right millennial that fits with who you are as a company.
Yeah.
So you can't blame a whole generation. Yeah, because they might be lazy or whatever else. People, creatives tend to be creatives, and they're not going to get it. You're not going to get creative in your office before.
Okay.
I mean, you just got to know who you're dealing with and know how to manage them and be okay with things.
Yeah.
They need more freedom, but Google is a very good example. They've got tons of millennials, and they keep them engaged, and they keep them in the office, and they keep them there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why companies have ping pong tables and foosball tables, so they don't leave.
Yeah.
They bring in food. So, if you keep, you just got to figure out what you work with and keep people in the office. Have them want to be there.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in an office, then, that's part of the gig economy, and you just hire them as a contractor.
Okay.
Yeah. Project out that work.
Project out everything. Yeah.
Well, not everything.
Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah.
I project out a bunch, but
so long as California allows you to do it and doesn't force you to have them as employees.
Yeah. Well, if somebody has their own entity, you're okay, right? It's their own business.
Yeah. it's a little higher than a podcast conversation, but but maybe.
But I digress.
But I digress. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and I think part of the issue with millennials that people don't understand is that it's the information age, right? So like they have all the information. They don't nobody really, and unemployment's so low. Nobody really needs your job, like you know what I mean. So like.
Well, I think the complaint that I hear is that a lot of them are living at home with their parents still. So they probably don't need your job, right? Because
mom not paying a mortgage.
They're not paying a rent. I mean, we're buying homes later in age than we were before. So, again, I kind of throw it back to the responsibility of the person who hired that person.
Yeah.
You made a bad hire on the millennial. Blame it on your process. Blame it on kind of your ability to identify the person who's right for your culture.
Yeah.
Accept your responsibility.
Yeah. Awesome. So you got a book coming out.
I do. Well, okay, so it'll be finished in July. Career Wounds is basically, part of the premise of what we already talked about.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah. So it'll be finished, and I still have to kind of do a lot of legwork on getting it out there, probably in August.
Yeah. All right. So through the hiring process, you got to be honest, right? You got to get to the truth.
Sure.
And you have to come through, right? So like if you're an employer and you're making promises to somebody and you're telling them that the job is going to be a certain way and that the first 90 days are going to look a certain way, it better darn right be that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right. So you don't want to be looked at as like a flake or a liar.
No, you should always deliver on whatever you promise. I don't know if you want to promise too much, though. I mean, you do want to make sure that everything that you're representing in your job description is real and true and congruent with who your company is, and consistent with what your core company values are.
Yeah.
Again, because to loop it back around to that, like if you don't know what your core companies are, you don't know how to hire, who to hire, because you don't know what to judge them against. So you kind of have to start there and then move.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, let's talk about the hiring process, Rick.
Okay.
All right. And so what does that usually look like from a successful, business's standpoint?
Okay. So let me kind of position on how I look at hiring, because we do primarily what we call engaged search, which is basically companies hire us to fill a critical role for them. And we found that if we let companies go to their own devise and they didn't have a solid process, then the chances of our A player being impressed enough to want to work at a company were fairly low.
Okay.
And so then it came down to the money. So what we do is we effectively go in and we help companies build out a effective recruiting process.
Yeah.
Starting with the framework of how the interview is conducted.
Okay.
Who conducts it? How much time? So you need to put a structure in place.
Right.
Right. You can't invite somebody in and think that you're going to have a conversation about who knows what. Let's just kind of talk.
Their feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to have a path that you take them down that challenges them mentally, but then also puts them in a position where they're like, wow, I've never experienced an interview like this.
Okay.
So if you think about interviews that you've been on early in your career, or maybe I have, I just remember going in and you kind of bullshit for 45 minutes.
Right.
And they're asking you like the canned interview questions, and then they kind of start making judgments of whether or not they like you based on really answers that have nothing to do with the quality of work that I've done or really anything that I've accomplished. Right. So they're bias.
Okay.
And you want to essentially eliminate bias from the interview process, and you want to look for opportunities to hire like diversity of thinking, and maybe even culture or whatever. You want to make sure that you're looking for opportunities to hire people who you wouldn't normally think, oh, I want to hire this person, but you got to find the evidence to make sure that you get to that this person might be great for the company to complement whatever skills you have. So let me take it back to structure. You want to have a timed structure where everybody who's involved in the interview process have pre-assigned questions that are testing against your company culture.
Okay.
So I usually run like a panel of 3 to 5 people, and no more than 45 minutes apiece. So it's like 35 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And each person is asking behavioral questions and engaging in a deeper conversation that might unearth who this person is and whether or not they match your company core values.
Yeah.
So then, now what I also do is I always build in with the interviewer what I call a knockout question.
Yeah.
So a knockout question might be something like, do you consider yourself to be lucky? Right? Yeah. That shows your attitude and how you view the world.
Right.
I actually have a client that's important to them. Like, so we built that as a knockout question.
You don't want an answer like, no, I never get ahead.
But people are on it. No, I'm not a lucky person at all.
Yeah.
And, you might get variants of that. Like, I consider myself fortunate, and you can get kind of, but when somebody says, no, I'm not lucky at all. And in fact, I have the worst luck ever. And here's why.
Yeah, they're a
pessimist. Yeah, exactly. That's not somebody who fits with your culture.
Yeah.
So those would be things that as you're going through the interview process, you find out. And when somebody hits a knockout question, it's not congruent with what your company is.
Right.
Then you kind of wrap up the interview. You let them know that, hey, look, based on our conversation, I don't know if we're going to be a fit for you and vice versa. So thank you so much for your time. And you release them at that point.
Yeah.
So you save the time of the other people.
Yeah. Is it best to tell people like during the interview process, like this isn't working out, it's time for you to leave? Or is it best like, we're going to wrap up here, I'll follow up with you?
No, you do it in a professional manner.
Yeah.
I always recommend that you close the process when you can, as quickly as you can.
Right.
So, hey, look at, one of our core values is we like to have people that are very optimistic, and being lucky is part of that. So while I really appreciate your time that you came today, I'm not sure if we're going to be a right fit for each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you'd agree with that. And they probably. And then, thank you so much. I mean, if there's anything I could do to help you out, please let me know, and I'll validate your parking. It was really great meeting you, and make them feel good about that, and send them on their way.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with providing feedback. I think a lot of companies are very, they don't provide feedback, or they don't close out the process, so they just disappear because they're afraid of getting sued.
Well, I mean, that is an atmosphere that is a real worry, right?
Yeah.
Litigation, but at the same time, treating people the right way, giving them information that can help them in the future, right?
Yeah.
That matters too.
Yeah. I think I haven't ever had anybody had that come back and bite me in the butt when I've given people feedback. And in most cases, they appreciate it, because I position it like, hey, look I really want you to do well in the next interview. And I do it in such a way where we kind of both agree together that, hey, look, it wasn't really a right fit.
Yeah.
It's not really where you want to go in your career. And I think we're going down 2 separate paths, and it's the truth. Mm-hmm. And they usually agree, and we're friends. And
that's actually a similar conversation. And I don't know. I mean, you're more on the hiring side, but that's a similar conversation that you have when you have to fire somebody. Like, right? It's like, now this isn't the best place for you, and this, like, you'd be better suited somewhere.
You quit, then you're better off than firing them. Well, and it's just from my experience too. If somebody quits, they feel bad about it because it's their decision. If they get fired, then that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes that bites you in the ass.
Yeah, that's
bit me in the butt a few times.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's continue that then.
The structure?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the 4 things in the structure. And then the really most important part, if you take somebody through an interview process, is that you wrap up correctly with them. So you should have somebody who's leading the process. So like if I'm leading an interview process, I would walk in and go, Gabe, this is so-and-so. You should be prepped. And
I'm gonna stop you really quick.
Yeah.
Who do you usually think should be leading that process? Should it be like somebody in HR? Should it be the person who that person will eventually report to?
It can be anybody. It can be a coordinator.
Okay.
It doesn't need. It can be your office administrator.
Yeah.
Just somebody who's in charge of keeping track of time.
Okay.
Who can essentially move the next person through.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
that's just for pacing, keeping it pacing, keeping the timing going over. You got to respect your time and you got to respect the other person's time who's coming to interview.
Right.
So the worst thing you do is say, hey, plan on being here from 2 to 3:30, and then you go until 4.
Right.
It doesn't seem like that's a bad thing, but you've scheduled a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that person has a job too, probably.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So.
So people, and again, sometimes they meander or go over, but you want to keep it as tight as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You also want to prep the candidate, right? So I want to tell the candidate or the person who's coming in, you're going to meet with this person from this time to this time, this person from this time to this time, and you can provide an interview schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But you also want to give them a little bit of a heads up on how you interview, like what we look for.
Yeah.
Hey, we ask behavioral questions. There may be some, so be prepared to really go in depth about what you've accomplished and what you've done. And we look for details. So if you're high level, you probably wouldn't be a good fit for here. And then to take it as, the next step from there is to make sure you're prepared.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be fumbling around. It looks bad on your company.
Don't look at their LinkedIn profile a minute before you're supposed to interview them.
Yeah.
Have a prep meeting or, have their information in front of you the day before so you can have a conversation with them and kind of have an idea of who they are.
Right.
Don't be like bumbling at the resume. There's nothing more unimpressive to somebody who's sitting across the desk from you that's a really strong, talented person.
Right.
And you going, okay, so you worked at XYZ for like, why were you only there 2 years? Like,
right.
You're just kind of getting this information. You're fumbling.
It's obvious.
For
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and in fact, I don't recommend that you even have a resume in there while you're interviewing somebody.
Okay.
Unless you're the one who's kind of testing gaps or something like that. Unless there's some obvious thing that's in there.
Yeah.
Because again, it's testing. You want to interview for the white space.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. And from there.
Then closing out.
Yeah.
So when you wrap up with the person, you want to have maybe the person who started or their coordinator or whoever's running it.
Yep.
Wrap up with that person. You want them to tell you. You want them to convey a timeline. So as your interview team, you guys should be coordinated enough to schedule a time the following day to get together and talk about the various things that you guys talked about with that person. Trying to be as unbiased as possible.
Okay.
Right. And have a time frame. We're going to meet tomorrow at 3:00. Call, at 5:00 tomorrow. Like, I like to make the candidate proactive. Right. So I will have feedback for you by tomorrow at 3:30. So if you don't hear from me by 4, call me at 4:30.
Yeah.
Right. And that way I know whether or not they're interested in the role too. Right.
Sure.
Because it's their job search, not mine. I know I'm trying to fill a job, but it's their career.
Are they still interested in that position?
Yeah.
Are they still hungry for it?
Yeah. They want to work at your company.
Right.
It's a key indicator. If somebody doesn't get back to you,
then
that's a red flag. That means they have other things going on. They might be shopping.
Yeah.
Those are just like little things that you want to.
I mean, one of the little things that I think are lost, right? And this has been my experience lately, right? Back when I was applying for a job, like 10 years ago or whatever, I used to follow up with a thank you email, actually thanking the person for having interviewed me.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know where that's gone, but I don't see that much anymore.
You might get a text message now.
A text message would be fine if you have my cell phone. Text me, but at least thank me for having interviewed you. Gosh.
Yeah, it seems like that's more. So that happens more when somebody's interested in your role.
Yeah. So maybe nobody's been interested.
Yeah.
I mean, but I've made hires, so I don't know.
But again, people get busy. I wouldn't expect it.
Right. Yeah.
I wouldn't get offended by it. By any means.
That's old school. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the fax cover letter. I think cover letters are silly.
Yeah.
Because it's not about. It's just something they wrote that's like a little marketing piece, and it doesn't really. I don't know. People like cover letters. I think they're just
Yeah.
I don't like resumes either. I think they're both silly.
Yeah.
I
not
hold a
about-
hard line on this.
It's not about any of that stuff. So what is it about?
So what it's about is
Yeah.
finding the right person who's going to
Yep.
thrive in your culture.
Yeah,
And-
everything we discussed today.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And then finally, once you have established a timeline, don't disappear.
Yeah. Don't ghost people.
Don't ghost people.
Yeah.
Close it out. Let them know that, hey, even if it's, hey, look, we're going to be moving forward with another candidate. Thank you so much for your time. We'll circle back around with you a little bit later. If there's anything to do, let me know.
Yeah.
Because when you disappear from people, they leave bad Glassdoor reviews for your company.
Yep.
And that's a bad thing because Glassdoor charges a lot of money to get those taken
Yeah.
down.
They're worse than Yelp or what?
Yeah, exactly.
For bad reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get past those because people look at Glassdoor, they judge your company, and the fact is that very few people, the people who work in the company put good Glassdoor reviews up it. Right?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. But anybody who's worked at the company has not put up a Glassdoor review and then left the company, they're still not going to put up a good review. But if they go and they're disenchanted or, they leave in bad terms,
Yeah.
they're going to usually post something up.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
don't give people a reason to do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Information age.
It
It's,
just
it's
makes
all
my
out there.
job so much harder in finding people for your company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. I think you do those things and you'll be successful in hiring.
Awesome. So where do people find you, Rick?
So let's see. You can reach my company at Stride, STRIDE, search, SEARCH.com. Like I said, we do engaged search. So we're effectively just working with critical hires in a retained basis. My radio show is Higher Power Radio Show and Podcast. So it's HIRE. That's not a religious show again. POWERRADIO.com. Or you can tune in Tuesdays at noon on octalkradio.net.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the show today, Rick.
Absolutely.
You're a
Pleasure
you're a
being
pro.
here. Thank you.